Why only 8 minutes? Is somebody going to talk about success again? Do you want to know why I'm doing such podcasts? Welcome to my 10th jubilee episode of 8 Minutes to Success. This is the podcast 8 Minutes to Success. I'm Kinga Panufnik and I invite you to spend the next 8 minutes with me. On my way to success, I've learned a lot from others. That is why I'd like to share my personal experience with you. Welcome. Once, when I was at university, I had to take an oral exam in a subject I wasn't really interested in, and it also wasn't very important for my degree. However, I had to pass it to move forward. Nevertheless, the only way to pass it was to learn by heart the whole book which had been written by the examiner. This is not the way I like to learn, though. I think I've been a careful planner since I was born, so then I also created a strategy of how to get through the exam. I learned by heart only a few topics from the book. When it came to the exam, I entered the room, I had to choose question at random, and unfortunately for me, I didn't know the answer of any of them. So I decided to take maybe a risky strategy, but I assumed it would give me some chance to pass the exam. I started talking about the topic I knew, which actually was about something else, but in the words of the examiner. The professor, impressed by the sound of his own quotation, said, "It's not exactly what I wanted to ask in this question." So I continued the conversation by asking him what exactly he wanted to get from me as the answer to this question. This surprised him a little and prompted him to start telling me what the answer should be. To complete the process of answering the question, I repeated what he has said as my own answer to the question. I used the same technique to go through the 2 remaining questions. In the end, I passed the exam. I talked a lot during this exam, and so did my professor. But was it worth it? Did it make any sense? Did it bring any value? One can talk a lot and say nothing. That's why I decided to record the podcasts, which are limited to 8 minutes, and limit myself to getting to the point directly. Many people who start doing their podcasts prepare a 0 episode at the beginning to explain or to point out why and for whom they are doing it. It's a kind of introduction. I also considered doing that, but in the end I didn't. Instead of telling people what I was going to do, I just decided to do it. But today's episode has a 0 in its number. So I'm going back to the 0 episode concept and tell you why my podcasts are so short and why I have chosen the title about success. Why is it so short? Firstly, I respect the audience time. From my experience, I know that more words don't mean more sense, and more words need more time. Secondly, when we have a lot of time, we very often repeat the same sentences or even whole ideas, which dilutes the whole topic. Thirdly, when we have a lot of time, it raises the risk of some digression and means that we might waste time discussing incidental matters. By bringing the podcast out, I wanted to give you something like a nice breakfast. Delicious, energetic, with pleasure, and sometimes with humor, although light. Even when the episode is over, you will still be able to experience the taste of my words. Now, look at the difference. When you hear, I love you, and then nothing but silence, and then look deeply into each other's eyes in silence, you feel magic. But instead, you hear, I love you. You are such a nice person. You dress nicely. I like your makeup and your hairdo. So I thought I should tell you that. Or, I've been wanting to tell you that for such a long time, but I had to leave town for 2 weeks. Then the weather was pretty bad, so I decided to wait until it's sunny. And you think, please, get to the point, buddy. Can you feel the difference? I give you a challenge in each episode, and trust me, I also give myself a challenge to make sure my next episode is interestingly illustrated with an example, with some of my own personal reflections, and with a challenge for you. And all this in only 8 minutes. I don't measure the time while recording, though. The message is more important than the time. Why is this about success? My teacher, Gerhard Walper, has quoted Bert Hellinger with these words: "Success is everything which is in service of life." This feels very familiar to me and resonates with my values and my understanding of success. I work in business consulting, coaching people at different stages on their road to success. I've also been on my own way. This is how human helps other human, encouraging them to move forward. I welcome you to listen to my podcast, to have reflections, and also to disagree. Everybody can have their own point of view. And this is fine, if it's done with respect. If I can go back to the quote, everything which is in service of life. And a challenge for you for next week, even in the Jubilee episode. Next week, at least once a day, answer at least one question that you are asked in no more than 3 sentences. And carefully choose the right words and expressions to make your point without any extra description and incidental talk. Conserve your energy and be as economical with words as possible. Sometimes less is more. But let me also add something here. This advice doesn't apply to those people whose most sophisticated answer is usually no more than yes or no. That's all for today. See you next time. Bye-bye. This was 8 minutes to success. If I'd left you wanting more, that's great. It's much healthier to stay a little hungry rather than eat too much and feel sick. I hope you will listen to my next episode. To avoid missing any, I recommend that you sign up for the newsletter on my website www.8minutestosuccess.com, and the next episode will be sent to your email straight from the production line. Don't be afraid. I won't be bringing this out every day. Don't forget to subscribe. Would also be nice to get some comments from you, and if you feel it's worthy, you can share it with your friends. Take care. Bye-bye.